Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the 15th Annual Asia Clean Energy Forum, or maybe I should also say welcome to the first Virtual Asia Clean Energy Forum. Welcome from those around the globe. We have many people registered for this event. My name is David Elzinga. I'm an energy specialist with the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department at ADB. So I'm excited about the program that we have this week, providing you with a great lineup of speakers from around the world in plenary sessions, panel discussions. And so let me start off with an opening video on Asia Clean Energy Forum. Please run the video.
Since the start of ADB's Asia Clean Energy Forum 15 years ago, we have shared a vision trained squarely on building a sustainable future for Asia and the Pacific region. By looking to a future through the lens of ADB's Strategy 2030 and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the road to clean energy is filled with opportunities to collaborate and innovate. But the global pandemic has added to the persistent threat of change, slowing instead of hastening our march towards a clean energy future in the region. COVID-19 reminds us how pressing it is to future-proof our ideas and begin to reframe our approach to one that includes a greater focus on resilience. And we are adapting today by using technology to convene ACEF 2020 in a virtual format. To show that we can continue unimpeded in our quest for progress and to make the right connections. Where will ACEF 2020 take us? Our vision brings us to the goal of building flexibility and adaptability in a world that must contend not only with the ongoing development challenges of the past, but on new challenges. It is essential we address the specific needs of all those we support in the Asia and Pacific region and study how they might maximize their gains in clean energy through cross-sectoral approaches that bring into reality the possibilities for agriculture, mobility, and all the parts of our society. This will serve for building a framework for innovation in clean energy as a whole, able to deal with any issues that come, paving the way for an economy-wide approach that means thinking holistically to not only maximize the potential of sustainable energy in our homes and offices, but to also prepare entire countries for the transition to clean energy. And so, while the resilient future we envision might still be in the horizon, with cross-sectoral innovation as our guiding principle, we can wipe off the haze and begin to reclaim that clarity needed to cut a clear path forward to clean energy for Asia and the Pacific.
Well, I'm excited that we can find new ways to engage with each other, to collaborate and work together for clean energy in Asia and the Pacific. Let me just highlight a couple of housekeeping items. At either the top or the bottom of the screen, you will see there's a Q&A button. You can continue watching the screen and enter questions throughout the session. So please do that. It's a way to engage with the panel discussion at the end. We probably won't be able to get to all the questions, but indeed, please go ahead and do that. And we'd love to see what are the areas of interest as we go through the discussions this morning. Overall, during the week, we also encourage you to engage in the activity feed just as a way to reach out to other attendees. And I think this is a great opportunity. And again, during this time, we need to learn new ways to work together, to engage and network. So we're very excited about this opportunity. So without further ado, I'd like to move on to our introductory remarks. I'm going to turn the floor over to Vice President Bambang Susan Tono, who's our Vice President of Knowledge Management at the Asian Development, to welcome you to Asia Clean Energy Forum 2020. VP.
Thank you very much, David. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow colleagues in clean energy sector, a very good morning for those of you in Asia, good afternoon and evening for those of you in other parts of the world. Welcome again to the virtual 15th Asia Clean Energy Forum. I'm very honored to open the forum once again. This is not just because we are marking its 15th year in 2020, but because we have shown that not even a pandemic can stop us in our journey towards a low carbon transitions to meet sustainable development and climate goals. In 2006, when the very first ACEF was held at the ADB headquarters, there were less than 100 participants. Over the years, ACEF has become one of Asia's leading clean energy events with over 4,000 registered participants this year. By holding ACEF in a virtual format, we can continue the traditions of connecting diverse stakeholders from across Asia and the globe. We have the opportunity to share knowledge and highlight ADB innovative projects to scale up clean energy investment in the region. We can also explore more ways to work together to tackle climate change, build climate and disaster resilience, and enhance environmental sustainability. As the world is mobilized to fight the COVID-19 pandemic, the energy sector response to this crisis will be a key focus of this virtual 15th ACEF. Lockdowns have caused reduced economic activities, leading to falling CO2 emissions. However, it is important for us to understand that this will most likely be a temporary situation. We must not lose sight of the fact that climate change is still the pervasive and long-term challenge of our time. In fact, we should take the opportunity of the many changes triggered by the crisis. I'm sure most of you have experienced these big changes that could permanently increase energy efficiency and cut emissions, like remote working, reduced commuting, and use of video conferencing for events and meetings. At this ACEF, we will discuss ways by which the clean energy sector can help address the challenges of the pandemic and support the reopening of economies in our developing member countries. We will share views on this aspect and use them to develop a guidance notes on how to use energy sector investment in COVID-19 recovery pathways. As part of this, ADB will soon launch a regional technical assistance project on disease resilient and energy efficient centralized air conditioning system in public buildings. Cross-sectoral innovations is the main theme of this year's virtual ACEF. ADB is progressively engaging in multi-sectoral work, not only in the energy sectors, but also in health, transport, water, urban, and other sectors to achieve our Strategy 2030 goals. Ladies and gentlemen, ACEF participants, at this opening session, we will hear from ADB President, Mr. Masatsugu Asakawa, the International Energy Agency Executive Director, Dr. Tripathi Birol, as well as the distinguished panel to discuss the above-mentioned key issues. To start these discussions, let me pose 3 points to our panelists for their considerations in the sessions and also for reflections by all our participants over the course of this week. First, the pandemic has demonstrated the essential need for energy supply in so many different ways, be they in providing health services or facilitating work from home arrangement. But as the skies cleared during the lockdown, it also showed us the impact that our normal life has had on the air we breathe. Can we now use the experience of cleaner air during these past months to mobilize more support for clean air and climate change mitigation efforts, while also meeting the energy needs? Second, under ADB Strategy 2030, we will expand our visions to achieve a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific. These last few months have demonstrated the need for increased resilience in energy markets and energy delivery system. I would like to hear your views on how we can become more resilient and better prepared for the next crisis, whether this comes from natural hazards, market volatility, or even Paris the South and other pandemics. Third, the pandemic has once more underscored the importance of supporting vulnerable populations in our region. A major part of this support is providing access to energy in all its forms for electricity, clean cooking, heating, and cooling. In this context, how can the most vulnerable be best supported? Through energy-related stimulus that will support COVID-19 recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow colleagues, ACEF participants, these questions are complex and widespread, cutting across financial, cultural, and technical matters. There are no easy answers, but I believe that we, as energy and development professionals, can and must work together urgently to find the needed solutions. I look forward to hearing the productive discussion at this ACEF, and thank you for all your participation and engagements. Once again, welcome to the virtual 2020 Asia Clean Energy Forum.
Thank you, Vice President Susantono, and thank you for these thought-provoking questions, as well as your leadership in the knowledge work that is done at ADB. So thank you very much. The next speaker I'd like to introduce is Mr. Craig Hart, who's the Deputy Mission Director for the U.S. Agency for International Development in Vietnam. USAID has been a strong partner in ACEF for many years. So Craig, I look forward to hearing your words at the start of this event.
Great, David, thank you. So good morning. On behalf of USAID, I'm honored to be here to join you for the opening of the 15th Asia Clean Energy Forum. First, I want to thank our co-sponsors, especially distinguished colleagues, Matsugo Asakawa, the President of the Asian Development Bank, and Dae-Gyun Oh, Executive Director, Climate Response of the Korea Energy Agency. So today I'm speaking to you from wonderfully sunny Vietnam, where the lotuses bloom, as do solar, because just in 2018, 10 megawatts was the level of solar at that stage of the game. We are now up to 4,500 megawatts in 2020. Solar now constitutes more than 10% of the country's total generation capacity. And this all happened in just 2 years. So how do we go about supporting and expanding this great trend? The U.S. has worked with many of you to support the development of sustainable, secure, and self-reliant energy sectors in Asia. Together, we've been successful. For example, Southeast Asia is set to achieve universal access to electric power within the next decade. But Asia's growth and growing demand for energy is going to require upwards of $2.7 trillion in new investment to modernize and expand energy infrastructure. Achieving this goal, of course, is going to be challenging, partially because of the inherent difficulties of building a sustainable energy sector, but also, quite frankly, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 really puts the development of sustainable energy at a crossroads. On the one hand, cheaper oil and delays in infrastructure development could slow the progress that Asia has made toward market-based clean energy solutions. However, alternatively, the economic downturn could serve as a catalyst for the development of renewable energy. The falling costs of renewable power, rapid advancements in technology, and a steady commitment to clean energy will keep Asian countries on a path to develop some of the most advanced clean energy sectors in the world. We also firmly believe that cross-sector collaboration is critical to achieve this goal. And there, of course, are plenty of opportunities for cross-sector initiatives, such as the hydro-powered pumps used for irrigation, solar-driven indoor cooling systems, or the use of electric vehicles for public transit. But we need more cross-sectoral applications and ideas, and we need your cross-sectoral applications and ideas. For over a decade, USAID has partnered with Asian countries to innovate, harnessing US expertise in clean energy technology, market-based procurement practices, and transparent policies. Through enhancing development and growth through energy, or Asia Edge, the US has deepened its commitment to Asia's energy supplies. Asia Edge draws on the expertise of the US government and private sector, as well as international financial institutions, to strengthen energy security, diversify energy sources, expand energy access, and increase electricity trading across the Indo-Pacific. So you can learn more about Asia Edge on Thursday, when we'll demonstrate how Asia Edge programs work across sectors to promote sustainable and inclusive energy markets. So let me share with you just a really quick preview of how we hope to work with you to support the trend of increasing clean energy. So here in Vietnam, in addition to those great numbers that I shared with you earlier, USAID has been working with the Vietnamese government to launch the country's first direct power purchase agreement pilot program, which will enable large private sector consumers to contract directly with renewable energy producers. USAID is supporting the design of Vietnam's Power Development Plan 8 to increase renewable energy in the future. And we're also working with the private sector to bring the best solar and wind projects to the market, bringing project developers together with financial institutions and supporting our government counterparts as Vietnam becomes a renewable energy leader. Across Southeast Asia, USAID's Regional Development Mission for Asia mobilized over $250 million of public and private financing toward renewable energies in 2019. In the Philippines, USAID is designing a 5-year, $35 million activity called Energy Secure Philippines, which aims to mobilize $750 million of private investments for the energy sector, adding 500 megawatts of additional generation capacity. In Indonesia, phase 2 of our Indonesia Clean Energy Project has mobilized over 1.7 billion in clean energy investments. USAID has partnered with Indian powered distribution companies to deploy an integrated approach to energy resource planning, which will help companies better predict consumer energy needs and provide renewable energy solutions. In Thailand, USAID's partner Clean Power Asia has recently helped retail stores install rooftop solar panels across their market footprint. This has lowered the cost for the retailer and assures consumers of a reliable supply of essential products. Finally, last month, USAID and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory launched a no-cost Ask the Expert service to connect our partners with leading US experts in topics related to energy system response, recovery, and resilience to navigate the effects of COVID-19 on the energy sector. So USAID looks forward very much to working and celebrating together with our cross-sector innovations on Friday, when we present the winners of the Water and Energy for Food EDGE Ag Energy Prize. This award, co-sponsored with the German, Dutch, and Swedish governments, rewards promising innovators deploying renewable agricultural energy solutions. USAID is committed to strengthening partnerships and developing innovative solutions for a clean and affordable energy future in Asia. Thank you for participating in this great event, this year's Asia Clean Energy Forum. Back to you, David.
Well, thank you, Deputy Mission Director Hart, for these encouraging words and to share the work of USAID. That sounds like some wonderful work in the region and very important work. I now want to turn this over to a video message from Mr. Dae-Gyun Oh, the Executive Director of Climate Response from the Korean Energy Agency. And the Korean Energy Agency has been, again, a long-term partner with us in ACEF. So please, can you share this message?
Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished participants. Climate Response Executive Director of Korea Energy Agency. I would like to express our warm greetings to all participants for attending Asia Clean Energy Forum 2020 for supply of clean energy and energy transition. Responding to the COVID-19, this year's ACEF is held online and is going to be much more special than any other years. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Masasugu Asakawa, President of ADB, and colleagues of USAID for this special event. Also, I would like to extend a great thanks to those who are here to be part of this forum. As you have been experiencing, COVID-19 has caused border closures, city lockdowns, as well as school closures. The coronavirus and its fatal impact is reaching to our lives and future of humanity, which have become threatening not only in health, society, and economy, but also in all existing areas. Considering how fast coronavirus is spreading all over the world, the forecast of the long-lasting pandemic is extremely worrisome. Some experts stated that the modern infectious diseases, such as coronavirus, are caused by climate change, with the following three analyses. First, global warming due to climate change. Second, destruction of ecosystem due to human activities, which in third leaves wild animals with no option but migration, which brings various viruses with them. When hearing from the news on the spread of the viruses due to habitat displacement, mitigation of fine dust in major cities from reduced economic activities, and reduction of mortality due to reduced air pollution, it can be said that these three analyses are pretty accurate. Considering these points, it should be essential to put in efforts to respond and deal with climate change, not only as individuals, but also all countries together. Let's turn a crisis into an opportunity. With the global pandemic, the crisis has come to humanity, but we'll have to confront and overcome wisely and take this opportunity to learn more about climate change. Governments and international organizations around the world will need to actively supply clean energy and prepare eco-friendly energy transition policies to fully support the response to climate change, develop innovative technologies related to clean energy, and continuously strive to foster industries. This ACEF 2020 is in progression of a new form never like before. Although this is a one-shot forum, we have prepared various kinds of special events and deep dive workshops. I hope you will participate in and enjoy each event and share your knowledge and opinions with different experts to take the opportunity to learn more about climate change and clean energy. Korea Energy Agency and I will also endeavor to respond to climate change not only in Korea but around the world through cooperation between institutions, countries, and international organizations. Once again, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all participants and staff who have made this forum possible. I hope that ACEF 2020 will be successful and hope that each country will be able to overcome the coronavirus in the nearest future, then return to their daily lives. I wish each and every one of you for your well-being and the best of luck. Thank you very much.
That's a great message from Executive Director Oh from the Korean Energy Agency. We've appreciated their vision and their support during this difficult time and their ongoing support to the Asia Clean Energy Forum over the years. I now want to hand it over to Her Excellency Karen Owen, the British High Commissioner to Singapore, who will be representing the good work from the UK government, from the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. They have been a great supporter of the clean energy work at ADB. So, Your Excellency, I hand it over to you.
David, thank you very much for your kind words. I'm absolutely delighted to be here at the official kickoff of the Asia Clean Energy Forum 2020. We have always enjoyed this event and found it absolutely invaluable, and we take our hats off to the team that have managed to transition this event online. I'm really struck by the number of people that are participating. Thank you also to President Masatsugu Asakawa, Mr. Bambang Susantono, and the whole of the team at the Asian Development Bank, not only for this event, but for everything that you have done tirelessly over the last 15 years in convening people, in motivating people to take action around this issue. I just want to make a few remarks which are going to focus partly on the challenge, and both Craig, Hunt and Mr. O have talked about the challenge that the world is facing at the moment, but also about the really strong feeling of opportunity that I sense within the private sector, within governments, for us to use this current challenging climate to make a decisive difference in some of the choices that we are making. So obviously the COVID-19 crisis is our backdrop. And I think it is reminding us that as we make decisions about how to enable our economies and our societies to bounce back better, the choices we make around energy use will either lay the foundation for really sound, sustainable and inclusive growth, or if we make the wrong choices, we could lock in polluting emissions for decades. As Craig has referenced, the economic case for placing clean energy at the heart of our recovery is really clear. Across Southeast Asia, renewable energy is increasingly cost competitive with fossil fuels, and many governments are making the choice to really invest into renewable energy instead of fossil fuels. It has the potential to meet growing energy demand at a lower cost than coal in the long term, and the potential to create employment in the industries of the future. So instead of investing in the technologies of the past, economies could be investing and skilling people up for the economies of the future, and to attract international investment, enhance energy security, and improve public health. Climate action and low carbon growth has to be an essential component of a successful economic recovery. Being based here in Singapore, I spend a lot of my time talking to some of the investment institutions, that major banks, investment houses, individual investors. And one of the things that has struck me at the moment, which is part of the reason why I have real hope for this next period, is that they are talking to me in unflinching terms about the fact that they have made a choice to invest in greener solutions right across the board. And they say to me things like, if ever we needed a reminder of the need to pay attention to tail risks, COVID-19 has been it. We cannot afford to ignore the long-term tail risks in our investment. COVID-19, even though it has cost many lives and caused massive disruption to our economies and our societies, is providing us with a classic case study of why investment decisions need to be made smartly and with an eye to the long term. So this is, for me, a moment of hope as well as a challenge. And I really hope that we can be ambitious in the choices that we make to build resilient economies and societies. I wanted to say a few words about what we are thinking about in the UK as we take on presidency of COP, and in the run-up to the COP plenary in November next year. We hope to build on the success of last year's UN Climate Action Summit in bringing together global leaders from government, the private sector and civil society to mobilise on climate action. Our aim through COP26 campaigns will be to spur on more ambitious action and many existing initiatives. I'm going to mention a few around energy and transport, transmission, and on equipment. So under the Energy Transition Campaign, we're going to work with countries, with development banks, investors and civil society to enable a global transition to cheaper, cleaner power in Southeast Asia, through expanding the Powering Past Coal Alliance and strengthening the renewable energy offer as an alternative to new coal. Last week, the UK marked 60 days without coal power. This is the longest period we have gone without using coal in our industrialised history. Through sharing our experience of what has worked successfully in the UK, we can support countries in planning their own transitions and hopefully leapfrogging some of the issues and challenges some of the early adopters of renewable energy have discovered along the way. Through the Super Efficient Equipment and Appliances Deployment Seed initiative, the UK will partner with the IEA, and we're going to hear from Fatih Birol later on, to drive ambition on product energy efficiency standards to reduce global emissions and secure country commitments to more ambitious energy efficiency policies. Building on the International Zero Emission Vehicles Alliance, Our transport campaign aims to double the pace of the global transition to zero-emission vehicles. It will establish a dialogue of senior political leaders to commit to making all new cars and vans zero emissions by 2040. And this is an area where I think we can all make individual choices to be the change we want to see. Our diplomatic service, which is aiming to be the greenest diplomatic service in the world, has recently transitioned to using electric vehicles for our flag cars. I myself am now driving a fully electric Jaguar I-Pace. In support of the UN Climate Action Summit call for action on adaptation and resilience, the UK will lead a process to co-create a set of best practice actions on adaptation and resilience. Under our campaign, we'll promote building cleaner and more resilient energy systems and support countries in accessing the adaptation finance needed to put this into action. I'm also thrilled to share that the UK has just submitted our application for dialogue partner status in ASEAN, building on over 40 years of our dialogue partnership as part of the European Union. The enduring relationships between the UK and ASEAN member states and our long history of climate partnership will strengthen the UK ASEAN collaboration on climate action in the run-up to COP26 and beyond. The UK has got a really strong record of leadership in clean energy across this region. And some examples of our partnership in this area include the £50 million ASEAN low carbon energy programme, where we are focusing very much on how we can increase the provision and take-up of green finance across the region, and also energy efficiency. We're working under this programme in Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Myanmar, and the Philippines. The UK's 2050 calculator, which is an energy modelling tool, has helped Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam in mapping out low carbon pathways for their futures. In Indonesia, our Mentari Low Carbon Energy Programme partnership is going to play an important role in the country's green recovery, delivering inclusive and universal energy access through policy and regulatory reform, and realising the potential of innovative renewable energy technologies to drive sustainable economic growth. The Vice President posed us some questions, including around how we're going to make sure that as we recover and as we look at building back greener, we can make sure that these solutions reach the most vulnerable in our world. The UK has doubled our international climate finance to over £11.6 billion over 2021 to 2026. This will allow us to support countries throughout Asia to mitigate and adapt to climate impacts and to pursue clean, sustainable and economic growth. Finance is really critically important, and those who can should play their part in making sure that finance is available. As the world seeks to recover better from COVID-19, we also hope to work more closely with businesses, with cities, with regions and investors, all of whom are making critical choices on the zero carbon recovery, so that we can foster job growth and sustainable growth. The UK high-level champion, Nigel Topping, and Chilean high-level climate champion, Gonzalo Munoz, have launched the Race to Zero. This is a campaign to mobilising achieving net zero emissions by 2050 at the very latest. We are the first major economy to set a clear net zero target. We know it's going to be really challenging for us to make our own target, and we're going to have to make use of all of the very best of technology and innovation and strategic commitment to enable us to reach it. But we think that in doing so, it's going to make us really well positioned to share our learning and share our experience with our partners. Across Southeast Asia, many cities and businesses have already stepped up to the net zero challenge. Singapore has announced its ambition to achieve net zero emissions as soon as practicable in the second half of this century. I have faith in their innovative and technological capacity that they are going to meet or even, I hope, beat that ambition. We encourage even more regional players, particularly in the energy sector, to join us in reaching this goal. Throughout the week, you'll hear from UK speakers in the spirit of UK COP26 themes. You're going to hear from the UK COP envoy, John Merton, on the benefits of setting net zero targets. And you're going to hear a forward look about the COP26 in the closing plenary. On Friday, the UK is going to be hosting a deep dive workshop on financing investments in renewable energy in Southeast Asia, in collaboration with ASEAN Low Carbon Energy Programme and the Indonesia Renewable Energy Programme. You'll also hear later today and over the course of the week, the UK thought leaders across a wide range of topics, including sustainable cooling technologies across Asia. I wish all of you a really rewarding time here at the Asia Clean Energy Forum, and I strongly encourage everyone to continue these conversations after the week has concluded. I think you're going to make a really significant contribution to what we're all aiming to achieve in a sustainable, resilient future. Many thanks.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you for those encouraging words and exciting work that's happening around the region. It's a challenging amount of work that we need to do, especially in this new context. And hearing the great work that's happening is very useful to our discussions this week. Thank you very much, and thank you to all those who offered us some introductory remarks, a great way to kick us off in this event this week. Now, I want to go to our president, President Asakawa of the Asian Development Bank. He has just joined ADB in the earlier part of this year, and he's going to share with us his views on the role of energy in the context of the challenges of COVID-19, and share his views of ADB's role and vision in this context. So if I could ask you to roll that message, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings. It has been a challenging few months for us due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Tackling climate change and other development issues has become more difficult. However, the situation also offers opportunities to reopen economies in new ways and to rebuild smartly. We gather together at this Asia Clean Energy Forum, or ACEF 2020, to discuss these opportunities. On behalf of the Asian Development Bank, ADB, and our co-organizers, the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and the Korea Energy Agency, welcome. I'm very pleased that over 4,000 participants will join us online as ACEF celebrates its 15th year connecting policymakers and practitioners on the important subject of clean energy. In particular, I'd like to thank Dr. Fatih Birol, Executive Director of International Energy Agency, IEA, for his upcoming keynote speech on global trends in the clean energy transition, and IEA for being a strong knowledge partner of ADB over the years. Let me share with you some of my ideas about the indispensable role of clean energy in enabling Asia and the Pacific to emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic stronger than before, and how your discussions can contribute impactful solutions at this crucial moment. As we all know, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has caused severe and potentially long-lasting effects on health, livelihood, and economies. ADB projects that global losses could reach $8.8 trillion with Asia and the Pacific accounting for up to 30% of the overall decline. ADB's response has been quick and decisive as we put together a massive $20 billion comprehensive package to help our developing member countries address strained government budgets, obtain medical supplies and equipment, and protect poor and vulnerable groups. We are also supporting energy companies by providing working capital and helping to sustain supply chains. In addition to our COVID-19 response, we continue to invest meaningfully in the energy sector. We plan $5 billion in energy investment for 2020 and have already approved in just these first 5 months about $900 million in loans supporting renewable energy, efficiency, and electricity networks. Our continued investment in clean energy during this challenging period is a part of ADB's long-standing commitment to lead the region in combating climate change and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. In just over a decade from 2008 and 2019, ADB invested over $23 billion in clean energy, about 65% for renewable energy and 35% for energy efficiency. We also mobilized co-financing from our development partners to provide an additional $15 billion. These commitments contributed to scale and pace of investment in Asia and the Pacific, which in 2019 installed 119 gigawatts of renewable power generation capacity, representing 44% of the world total. Our region's share of solar energy is an impressive 57%. In 2019, our climate financing reached a record high of $6.56 billion, meeting our target of doubling ADB's annual climate investments from 2014, a year ahead of schedule. We have set even higher climate targets for the next 10 years under our Strategy 2030. We aim to provide $80 billion in cumulative climate financing and to focus on climate adaptation and mitigation efforts in at least 75% of our operations. Let me emphasize that the urgency to address climate change by accelerating the clean energy transition has not diminished because of the pandemic. In fact, the task is more important than ever. Like COVID-19, climate change poses a dire threat to human lives and highlights the need for early preparation and crisis response systems. 200 million people remain without access to electricity in Asia and the Pacific, and 1.8 billion do not have access to clean cooking. The signs of climate change remain and are alarming: rising sea levels, melting ice, and extreme weather. Over half of the world's CO2 emissions come from our region. Our Strategy 2030 serves as a roadmap for addressing these pressing issues while building a dependable and high-quality power supply, particularly in rural agricultural communities, which is vital for people's livelihood. Our projects supporting wind power in Thailand, geothermal electricity generation in Indonesia, green energy storage in Mongolia, and rural high-voltage distribution in India are just a few notable examples. Our regional transition to clean energy also requires active participation and partnership from the private sector. We are helping to leverage long-term commercial financing so that renewable energy can become an attractive and reliable piece of energy landscape. Our private sector investment continued to grow, representing 1/3 of ADB's energy sector climate financing in 2019. And we will soon launch a new platform called ADB Ventures to invest in clean technology startups and fill the risk capital gap, particularly in smaller and frontier markets. Let me turn now to discuss how our region can recover from the COVID-19 pandemic while promoting clean energy. Here, let me emphasize that the measures to revive economic growth have to be planned and implemented without undermining long-term sustainable development goals, such as the Paris Agreement targets. Shortly after I took office as President of ADB in January, and just before the COVID-19 outbreaks cascaded across the world, I said that protecting the environment and tackling climate change are fully compatible with economic growth. Faced now with the damaging effects of the pandemic, I do believe with the same conviction that this is also true for economic recovery. Increased investment in clean energy infrastructure should be an important part of post-pandemic stimulus package for our developing members, ensuring that the economies emerge not only stronger and more resilient to climate and health shocks, but also with jobs in the renewable energy industry that offers more and higher quality employment opportunities than conventional energy. To strengthen and speed our path towards a clean energy future, We will also encourage technology innovations, such as floater solar, waste-to-energy, electric vehicles, hydrogen, battery storage, and smart grids. We launched the first ADB Innovation Challenge at ACEF last year, and will support pilot projects selected from among the 100 excellent proposals. This year, our challenge is to develop digital and other solutions for handling waste and reusing discarded materials. ACEF 2020 will focus on cross-sectorial innovations and energy sector resilience, key elements for achieving nationally determined contributions and implementing our strategy 2030, particularly in light of COVID-19. We are also reviewing ADB's energy policy 2009 so that our support for universal energy access and the low carbon transition remains relevant and effective. We will hold consultations with stakeholders at these meetings. So thank you once again for joining us at ACEF 2020. I look forward to learning about how your discussions have deepened our collective understanding of the important work that need to be done on clean energy at this critical juncture in our lives and those of future generations. I wish you productive discussions, and I remain ever humbled by your efforts to help achieve a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and Pacific.
Well, those were a reminder of the scale of work that's needed to address the response to COVID-19, but then also as we move on to the recovery, we have so much more work to do, and ADB is there to respond and support this recovery. Now, this brings us to our polling question. So this polling question, either at the top or at the bottom of your screen, there should be a live poll question where you can respond to this. But this is a reflection on that, and we'd love to hear from you. What is the most important energy sector consideration during recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic? Is this building energy infrastructure for economic recovery and growth? Should we be focusing on enhancing energy sector resilience to future crises, no matter what they are? Should we really be focusing on energy access and energy security? Or lastly, should we focus on climate change mitigating energy supply and demand technologies? Now, I think this is a tough question. I think all of these are important, but we'd really like to hear from you. What do you think is the most important if you really had to choose one? So we're going to leave this polling question up for a few minutes during the next message that we're going to hear. And so you can look at this and hear the video message at the same time. But we're very interested in then following the next message from the IEA, we'll show you the results and have some commentary on that as well. So now I'd like to welcome by video message Dr. Fatih Birol, the Executive Director from the International Energy Agency, where he will share his views on putting clean energy at the heart of COVID-19 recovery plan. So please, if you could bring that message.
Dear President Asakawa, thank you for inviting me to speak alongside you at the 15th Annual Asian Clean Energy Forum. While I wish we could be together in person, I am very impressed by what I see of this first ever virtual ACEF meeting. Many colleagues told me about ACEF, and I know very well that it is a renowned meeting in Asia as the key clean energy event. It always brings several key stakeholders to drive change towards a more sustainable energy future. And we at the IEA are proud to support ACEF. We are partner to ACEF, and in the future, we will be very happy to support you further for your next meetings to come. Now, a word on the Asian Development Bank and the IEA. Only a few days ago, I had the privilege to have a good meeting, virtual meeting with President Asakawa. I understood that our way of understanding the global challenges, including energy and sustainability, is very similar. It made me very happy. We had an MOU, which played an important role for working closer together. And I hope that we can refresh our cooperation and bring it to higher levels in the next months and years to come. And I can tell you, on my part, I am very keen to make our relationship even closer under the able leadership of President Asakawa. Now, dear colleagues, Asia is very important for the IEA. And it's very normal, because when we look at where the energy demand comes from, where the energy investments go to, Asia is by far the #1 region in the world. And therefore, we think there is a very good complementarity between IEA and ADB. IEA looks at the numbers in the energy world, analyzes the energy sector with a huge expertise of 40 years of over 300 renowned experts at the IEA, whereas ADB provides funds, investments to make the world, especially Asia, a much more sustainable but economically prosperous region of the world. We are at the IEA very keen to see clean energy increases its share in the global energy markets and also in Asia. We are well aware that the coronavirus, our numbers show that, creating a challenge for the entire energy industry, energy investments, but also for the clean energy investments. When we look at the investment picture, this year, we expect global energy investments will decline about 20% compared to 2019, which is about $400 billion decline in global energy investments. It is a historical drop. We have never seen such a big decline. It's around the world and all the energy sources. And when we look at Asia, there is a huge challenge. Our numbers show that in order to have a sustainable future in Asia, we have to mobilize each year about $3 trillion to have a sustainable energy future in Asia in the next 10 years. 3 trillion per year in the next 10 years. It will be very challenging, but we know that the ADB will play a key role here. Another reason which makes me believe that we may well see these sums coming together to mobilize clean energy investment is that the cost of clean energy is coming down, and we are seeing around the world that the clean energy proves to be a lucrative, attractive business around the world. This includes Asia as well. And when I say clean energy, I want to make clear to you, I make renewable energies, solar, wind, hydropower, and others, I mean energy efficiency, very important, efficiency in the buildings, efficiency in the industry. But I also mean hydropower. I also mean a nuclear power in the countries where it is accepted. I also mean carbon capture and storage, in my view, a very critical technology. We need all these clean energy technologies to be a part of the solution. And here, Asia is extremely important for us. It is the very reason we are at the IEA working very hard to make sure that the governments in the recovery packages they are preparing put an emphasis on the clean energy incentives and investments. This is very important because in a few months of time, trillions of dollars of recovery packages will be put on the table by governments. What kind of energy policies they are going to put in will determine the future of energy systems. We well know, we are realistic people. We well know that the key issue here is jobs, employment. Key issue is economic growth, rebound of the economy. And the policies we have should help to improve the economy and create jobs. It is the reason IEA has, in cooperation with the International Monetary Fund, prepared a report that we are releasing on 18th of June, Sustainable Recovery, to give advice to governments around the world, which I know they are waiting for. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, we are bringing the many countries around the world together on 9th of July at the IEA Clean Energy Transition Summit, 9th of July. Ministers from US, Canada, Brazil, Chile, China, India, Indonesia, Japan, all European countries around the world, and hopefully the ADB President and the presidents and the executives of the banks and the industry to provide a momentum to clean energy transitions. And here, Asia will get an important emphasis as it is the heart of the global economic growth and the future of the energy investment destinations in many cases. I thank you very much for inviting me and looking forward to work with you together. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for those words, Dr. Barol. Just reinforcing the importance of clean energy in the recovery from COVID-19 and working together, all of us working together to solve the problems and address the needs of Asia and the Pacific. Inspiring words. I want to now pass it over to Dr. Youngping Tsai, the Chief of the Energy Sector Group at the ADB. He's going to take a moment to highlight the poll, the results from the poll, and then lead us in a panel discussion with several experts globally. So Dr. Tsai, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, David. I suppose we can see the result of the polling now. We had asked 4 questions. One is about the building infrastructure, energy infrastructure for economic recovery and growth. Second one is on the energy sector resilience. The third one is energy access. The last one is on climate change mitigation. So we wanted to know in our participants' mind, what is the priority among the 4? All of these are important. Actually, when we're preparing this poll, we had the 5th question, that is all of the above, but I decided to remove it. Otherwise, people would put that 5th one all over. So it's interesting to see that energy sector resilience
has become #1 in people's mind, representing this large audience here. And followed by climate change mitigation. It's very, very interesting. When I start my job as like 25 years ago in this, I remember the economic growth was #1 priority for sure. And of course, energy access has been always one of the priorities in our operations. But moving forward, and this given this context of the pandemic and all the discussions on the climate change, and I think that we can see views evolving, and it's interesting to see we have this result. We can take this poll as a basis of our panel discussion. I'm very honored to be the moderator of this panel discussion with very distinguished panelists and my friend colleagues. I can start with introducing permanent Ms. Wasanta Pereira, Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Power and Energy, Sri Lanka. And also our friend, Mr. Upendra Tripathi, Director General, International Solar Alliance, an international organization created based in Delhi. And Mr. Dave Turk, Acting Deputy Executive Director of International Energy Agency. And of course, my Director General, Mr. Woo-Chung Om of Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department in ADB. So these are my colleagues in this panel. Before I start asking a question, you recall the three questions asked by Vice President in his introductory remarks. Basically, he asked, what's the impact, the implication of COVID-19 in terms of our action, understanding of climate change? How do you see the linkage? The second one is, again, about energy sector resilience. How do you see this in your context, in your work? And third one is in all this pandemic situation, post-pandemic recovery, what would be our ways of making sure that the most vulnerable people will be protected and supported? And these are the questions I would ask you as a first round of question. Basically will be 3 rounds of questions. Second round, where I pick up some question from the audience, Q&A. There's a chance to remind our audience you can post your question online. And the last round will be very, very short statement from all of us, all of panelists, one suggestion, one advice as for the action to be undertaken either for ADB or for your organization or for the audience to take one specific action that we can move forward based on these discussions. So let's start with this panel discussion. I would suggest that we go first to Secretary Wasanta Pereira from Sri Lanka. Secretary, please. Okay, if Secretary Pereira not ready, let's go to DG Tripathi from International Solar Energy Alliance, please.
Thank you, Yang Ping. Such a pleasure to see you on the screen, and I wish we're all physically there. And congratulations to ADB for all that wonderful editions you had earlier and the virtual edition that we have today. And I'm so happy that we have brought all of us together on such important themes. I mean, about the 3 questions that actually, you proposed and said it's open, that we can also go beyond that. That was nice of you to make it flexible. But on the first question, the lockdown due to COVID have shown what a clean air looks like. And can we really use it to raise funds? Yes, we can. But then we have to also show the human face of it, how clean it got and how it got clean. If you take an example like India, the impact on migrant labor, the informal economy of COVID was really huge. And in ACEF, we for the first time thought about looking at energy access or other issues to look at how different segments of economy and how it impacts. The impact on formal sector is entirely different from the informal sector. So, and we can use the clean air because in ACEF, we started a initiative called ISA Care. So we made a list of all LDCs and small island developing countries, small island countries, and then we took one hospital in each district, and we are coming out whether we can solarize the unelectrified hospital. So this is the type of response that we are reinventing ourselves. Increased resilience is a must, and I'm very happy that the audience talked about the energy resilience as the 41% of votes, and that is how I think the future energy infrastructure plans have to take this into account if we are talking about long-term plans. And about the vulnerability of the best supported through energy-related stimulus. Actually, the future stimulus plans of most countries, if you look, it is not so much based on the classical economics. It is actually trying to address both supply and demand side issues. But this also talks us, to bring in a model to study the impact of COVID-19 on most countries. Actually, yesterday I saw a graph of how mobile phones have been used in the parks of different European countries. And it is such an interesting idea to find during the lockdown period in various European countries, how the mobiles were used and what type of message and information it gives. It actually gives about compliance in different countries, how actually the impact of COVID-19 was linked to that. In developing countries, if you look at it, it was more linked to access to IT and information technology, how IT was used to test and track. And also it was linked to the size of the informal economy, how there was a lot of mobility, labor mobility from the city centers to the villages, and how actually it impacted the spread. So to top it up, I would like to say in the next year's annual conference, actually we can bring out something to do with clean air and the multiple variables that actually condition the spread and how we face it. In ISA, we have got 6 programs and 2 initiatives. The initiatives to do more with capacity building, but the target of ours, 3, that 1,000 billion investment, bring down the cost of technology and capital. That is what we are focusing more post-COVID period. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, DG Tripathi, for sharing your views and experience and also your program in the coming months and year. And we'll be continuing working with ISA as a partner and see how do we promote solar energy in Asia and beyond Asia. We can share knowledge as well. I would like to check if Secretary Pereira is ready to speak. Otherwise, I can move to Mr. Dave Turk from International Energy Agency for sharing your views on this question, of course, from your perspective.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having the IEA, both myself and our executive director, who you just heard from. And it's such a pleasure to be with you for the Asia Clean Energy Forum, and especially for this virtual ACEF, showing the adaptability and the skill of the organizers. So congratulations for this terrific event. So several thoughts on the questions at hand, and I'll try to be brief as well. First of all, on the air pollution issue that my colleague was just speaking about, and let me congratulate him for all the terrific success of the International Solar Alliance under his leadership. It's been quite amazing to see the progress of that organization over just a few years of work. One, on the air pollution side, especially how it relates to climate change, I think it's really showing us that seeing is believing. And it's been quite eye-opening, literally, for many people living in cities and countries that the air pollution has been getting worse for many years. And being able to see the blue sky, being able to see the Himalayan mountains or whatever mountains or features are in any respective town. And I think that kind of opportunity gives hope that society is able to make change, that we are able to make change if we're able to work together, work smartly going forward. So no doubt air pollution is a huge challenge for many, many around the world. 3 million deaths caused by outdoor air pollution. And climate change is equally an incredible challenge, causing harm right now and even more harm in the past. So hopefully these are moments where people take a step back and they see that something different is possible, and then they work towards that day in and day out, both to solve the air pollution issues, but also the climate change issues as well. It's very interesting to see that resilience was the top choice for the audience and the prioritization question. And I'm really glad our moderator took out the all of the above, because I'm sure everyone would have selected, just as you say, the all of the above issue. And we've been focused on resilience throughout the entire 40 plus years of the IEA's history when it comes to energy. And I think it is moving up the kind of priority list in countries, governments, private sector all around the world. And the pandemic, I think, shows why resilience is so important to a variety of different pieces. One, we've seen energy being very impacted by energy, and COVID is really impacting energy significantly. We're expecting a demand decrease of about 6% for energy from the COVID lockdowns around the world. That is a huge, huge amount and huge impact on energy. But we're also seeing is how important energy is. Just look at electricity and how important electricity is for all the health response, for all the ability for societies to move on even in lockdown. And so I think resilience will take on a new importance coming out of the COVID crisis. It's something we're very much focused on, and I think there's a lot of international learning that can take place on resilience, how we can all learn from each other to make our energy systems as resilient as they possibly can. And certainly with a particular focus on electricity, given the importance of electricity in modern societies across and around the world. And then lastly, very quickly on the question on the most vulnerable. And I think it's right that we focus on the most vulnerable. It's right that we focus on the most vulnerable at all times. We have a moral responsibility, we have an ethical responsibility, and it's a key feature of ensuring inclusive, prosperous societies overall. And certainly the most vulnerable going into a crisis are also the most vulnerable during the crisis and most vulnerable coming out of the crisis as well. So our hope is certainly from the IEA side when it comes to energy, let's focus some of these economic recovery plans, some of these stimulus programs to really protect the most vulnerable. And certainly when it comes to energy, with SDG 7 in particular, there's a lot more work that needs to be done, not only for electricity access, but clean cooking access as well. So a lot more work to be done on that front. But thank you very much again for having the IEA here.
Thank you very much, Dave, for covering all three questions. But do expect one advice on one issue at the very end. Okay, thank you, Dave. Now I'm happy we have Secretary Pereira joining us again online. If you can hear from us, we have asked a few questions earlier, but I want to bring these questions to your context in Sri Lanka. What's been the impact of COVID-19 and what's been your response? How do you see moving forward? Thank you.
All right. Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. And let me first acknowledge and recognize the contribution of the Asian Development Bank in promoting clean energy in Asia region. Second, I must congratulate ADB for continuing the forum despite coronavirus threats. And we should appreciate the fact that you have decided to have it virtual this time, making the summit itself clean, as it would otherwise have a lot of fossil fuel. Third, I wish to thank the organizers for inviting me to share my thoughts at this forum, which I consider as a great opportunity. As you may know, Sri Lanka also was hit by COVID-19 pandemic. To date, we have a total of 1,900 infected of COVID-19, and many have fully recovered now, and 11 deaths reported. This is for a country with a population of 21 million. So the mortality rate from the infected is as low as 5 in 1,000. And Sri Lanka's successful achievement in fighting coronavirus had been praised by the WHO as well. Our story was made successful due to many right decisions that we have taken from the top of the government in the right time. We were reacting rapidly to the early warnings, and there was a task force appointed by the president and rapidly mobilized the state-funded health services, of course, assisted by the security establishment, responding with impressive efficiency. Of course, we had to control airspace and mobility within the country. 3 T's, tracing, testing, and treatment, were activated rigorously. And there is still an excellent surveillance system and a very strict quarantine policy. As a result, not a single case was reported for the last 4 weeks from the society, other than those who come from overseas, who have been stranded in other countries, and also who have been traced for positive for coronavirus and are in the quarantine centers. Now the lockdown is relaxed and the country is getting back to normal. I mean, to the new normal, as some people say. COVID task force is now entrusted with a new task, which is poverty alleviation and economic revival. Country's first development priority in this post-COVID economic recovery is agriculture, targeting to improve food security and livelihoods. The second priority goes to renewable energy promotion. That shows how keen we are in making our environment clean. Much emphasis will be paid in Sri Lanka to improve the clean energy by maximizing use of renewable energy sources. Dr. Birol, in his keynote, mentioned that this year there will be a 20% decline in the global energy investments. And for a sustainable energy future, in Asia, we have to mobilize $3 trillion per year. This is a huge task. It is challenging. However, if we have the will, I'm sure that we can collectively achieve the targets.
Yes, thank you, Secretary Pereira. Actually, I wanted to say that how much we appreciate Sri Lanka's success in fighting with COVID-19 and also success in achieving 100%, almost 100% of rural electrification. ADB has worked with your team in documenting how you did that, in sharing your knowledge with other developing countries in Asia and maybe beyond, to see how your experience, your knowledge can be replicated in other countries. So once again, congratulate Sri Lanka and your great achievement. And we'll come back with some specific questions on what next you would advise us in the energy and the power sector later. Now, with these colleagues spoken, I would like to move to my Director General, DG Uchung. You have heard about from colleagues from international agencies, from our developing member countries. You have seen also the poll. What's your advice on these issues? Uchung, please, DG.
Thank you very much, Yongpeng, and I would like to extend a special thanks to all the participants, speakers, and personally, I've been involved in this ACEF since the very beginning, and I was a bit worried about what's going to happen to ACEF on the 15th one in the midst of COVID, but it turned out that we are having the biggest one ever, so I'm very pleased to be here. The COVID-19 obviously has disrupted everyone's lives so far. And often you hear the question about how is it impacting the climate change work. But I'm much more optimistic, as Ms. Owens mentioned, that there's a huge opportunity that we may have because this disruption is giving us time to think. And throughout the work of Asian Development Bank, as we try to deliver sustainable development, we are constantly trying to change and try new things. It's something that's more sustainable and innovative. But the problem is, we had to make these changes while we are still delivering our old products. So it's sort of like we are being asked to change the engine of the car while still driving. So this opportunity actually at least lets us stop very briefly and then think, what are we doing? Are we going in the right direction? Well, the good news is that our strategy 2030, which was established a couple of years ago, set 4 key things. First is prosperity. Second is inclusiveness. Third is resilience, our favorite, resilience, and sustainability is the last one. And these are basically very much aligned with the sustainable development concept which was set up somewhat 40 years ago under our common future. So that vision still remains, but we put the urgency behind us so that we can make the necessary changes. And also during this disruption, we've proven to ourselves that we can do the impossible. Prior to COVID-19, we were thinking, can we do remote working, work from home? We have about 5,000 plus people in our building, and this event actually has caused us to be able to work from home and without, at least from my perspective, seeing too much disruption in terms of productivity. And in the midst of our daily calls with everyone, I would often ask, so what's the most important thing to everybody? And most of them say it's internet. But I asked them, how about electricity? and that's something people didn't realize, that electricity, the power has to be there. So the questions about what we need to do in order to achieve the sustainable energy provision, that still remains. So this gives us tremendous opportunity for us to consider various new technologies, e-vehicles, electric, solar, water pumps for food security issues. So these all can be applied. In terms of resilience, we do have the challenge of making sure that the supply channel is not too disrupted, so that the energy utilities can continue to function, they can do proper maintenance, and so on and so forth. So that's something that we need to provide support in, whether it's financial assistance or technological. And then the post-pandemic most vulnerable people support is one of the pillars of Asian Development Bank's COVID-19 response, which we are providing about $20 billion worth. So after the initial effort to flatten the curve of the infections, now is the emergency assistance in terms of medical support. And then now we are starting to design projects, emergency projects, which will help rebuild. So in this context, we have to look to see who are the vulnerable people. I think Mr. Turk mentioned about the clean cooking, clean cooling. Cooling is very important in terms of COVID-19 response, because we do need to refrigerate medicines. Hopefully when we are in a space where we are able to deploy massive amounts of vaccine, we do need clean cooling system in order for us to be able to effectively deal with that. So let me stop here for a second, and I'll come back in the second round. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, DG Woo Chung, for sharing your reflections. Again, I recall 15 years ago when we started, we had less than 100 people. Now we are several times over, and with this online format, we had even much more. And we can debate on all these issues, important issues. We'll have a question, second round of question, but very briefly. I had received a large number of questions. I would like to start with the one simple one, where the statement is simple, but answer may be complex depending how you react to it. I would invite DG Tripathi to react to a question that's a number one in my list. Will the global pandemic will accelerate or decelerate the energy transition and use of solar, for example, towards low carbon? How do you see it, and why?
Well, I'm such an optimist. Well, before I go to that, I must thank Secretary Pereira for the points he made about, and congratulations to Sri Lanka, who has been a tremendous supporter of ISA, and to Mr. Turk for his good words about ISA. Thank you for the appreciation. Well, I feel actually this is going to give a lot of impetus to more investments in the clean energy sector. Because if you look at AISA now, we are thinking about a special purpose vehicle which is more responsive to the needs of the small island countries and the developing countries or the LDCs, because currently you find access to finance for these small countries is limited. It is time taking and all that. And COVID, actually, if we are talking about health access, and it's correctly pointed out, you cannot operate a computer without electricity. And that is what the DG ADB told us. That's very right. And you cannot operate a hospital without electricity. And if you look at the rural areas, when pandemic actually drove people to those areas from the cities, the inaccess to energy as well as the inadequacy of energy or undersupply of energy played a vital role. So, and so this rural demand coming up, the cooling taking a priority place, and a lot of rethinking at the portfolios that agencies control, whether it's multilateral banks or domestic banks. So, and the linkages to future crisis, how exactly we handle it. So from these reasons, I feel actually the investment in the clean energy sector is going to go up. And plus, of course, the consciousness, the awareness that is coming about clean energy and the social dimension of creating employment. Even if you look at USA, the maximum employment during last 4 or 5 years came from the clean energy sector. So keeping this and the prediction that somewhere around by 2050 we'll have some 43 million figure in the clean energy sector. So given that $1 you invest in any sector, but the returns that you get in terms of future sustainability, in terms of clean energy future, in fact, any sensible decision will be to get better returns in environment, ecological terms from the dollar we invest. And that is what we are trying to capture in AISA. We are talking about a World Solar Bank. We are talking about a new cooling scheme. We are trying to bring down costs. For example, in the next 3 months, we are going to tender LED bulbs for 250 million LED bulbs. We are going to tender a global tender for 47 million home power systems. Now, what essentially we are trying is to convert the segment of society which is not able to afford to a market and trying to bring down costs so that they can afford it. And so simply, it is going to be more, and it is going to be more because we are all rational human beings.
Thank you, DG Tripathi, for sharing your optimism on the future of renewable energy, solar in particular. Now I would like to move to Dave Turk, IEA. Actually, my list of questions, more questions on IEA than others, but I pick up one. What's IEA's definition of clean? We talk about clean energy, right? What's your definition of clean energy and role of natural gas in this transition to low carbon future?
Well, thank you for the question. And if I could just add something to the previous question, and then I'll answer your question directly. Sure. As we've done a survey across the energy spectrum, all energy systems across the world, and we look at all the fuels, oil, coal, gas, nuclear, renewables. The one that's been the most resilient of all of them so far in the COVID has been renewables, yes, which is a very promising sign about renewables potential, its importance for resilience, its importance in a decentralized solution for many parts of the world. Now, there's certainly challenges with renewables. There's challenges in efficiency. But as my colleague just mentioned, there's huge opportunities in various economic stimulus programs, various recovery programs for renewables, for efficiency, and other parts of the clean energy spectrum. So hopefully we're smart enough to take advantage of that and build towards the energy systems we want to have in the future, not just rebuild with some of the challenges of current energy systems. Now to the direct question on what's our definition of clean energy. We just came out with an annual exercise we call Tracking Clean Energy Progress, our TCEP report. All of this can be found on our website along with all the other analysis, where we look at 46 different sectors and technologies that we feel are important and can be part of the solution. And when we think about clean energy and what does it mean, we have to remember it's not just electricity generation. You have to think about solutions in transport, solutions that work in a variety of building context, industrial context, all across the energy spectrum. And when we look at those 46 technologies and sectors, we find that only 6 of those are actually on track to do their share to get us to where we need to go. Now, solar PV, my colleague from ISA will be pleased to know, is one of those that's on track, given the huge increases in increases in deployment and cost reduction decreases. But we have a lot more work with a lot of technologies. And if we need to get to the point where if we want to achieve our sustainable development goals, our Paris climate objectives, we've got to make serious reductions in a very accelerated way going forward. And we need a whole host of solutions, technology solutions, levers to really tap into investment, public investment, private investment, et cetera. So from our perspective at the IEA, there's a lot of technologies that need to be part of the solution, given that the challenge is so huge and multifaceted. And it may be that some technologies end up being the real champions out there. Solar PV is one that's done extraordinarily well over the last several years. But in order to reach a variety of solutions in a variety of contexts, better to have a whole bunch of tools in your tool belt as opposed to only having 1 or 2 or 3, some of which may be more challenging in an industrial context or in a transport context, et cetera, along those lines. We also have to work with some urgency, certainly on the climate change front, but the air pollution front, the energy access front. The world's people deserve to have clean energy systems, deserve to have less pollution out there. Health is on the line, economic livelihoods are on the line, and so we need to move quickly as well. And certainly we've seen natural gas in a number of societies provide important access to energy where it hasn't been before. And in many countries has provided what's called a bridge fuel, going from coal in particular to natural gas with some of the flexibility that it provides, and then getting to as quickly as we possibly can, as low emissions as we possibly can. So again, there's a role for gas to be played in the world, but we certainly need to work on a multifaceted technology solution, and again, move dramatically and move aggressively and move quickly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Turk, for sharing your views. Of course, these issues, but most particularly on natural gas, has been asked. The question has become a little bit, when I started mentioning natural gas, the question came, as you can imagine, on coal. This question may be tricky, but I would like to hear from Secretary Pereira, from your interaction with your colleagues, ministers in South Asia and other part of the world. And of course, coal is important in Asia, and in the coal power plants in the pipeline is also remains quite strong in Asia. What's been your view and your view on this issue of coal vis-a-vis clean energy development? I'm sorry for the challenging question to Secretary Pereira.
All right, yes. Yeah, I must tell you that renewable energy is the priority for the future. Government manifesto also very clearly said that renewable energy promotion is the priority, and we are going ahead with that. However, when we produce electricity, when we produce power, we have to think about stability and the cost as well. So the cost, stability, reliability, these are the issues that we have to consider in making our decision as to what energy, source of energy that we are using. There are experts working in Sri Lanka to see what best mix of all these sources suits Sri Lankan situation. We have to consider the limited available land that we have, and we are planning to go for floating solar in order to maximize the utilization of the solar energy capacity. And we have a huge potential for wind power, and we are going to explore that. And then in the next 3 years, we are planning to enhance the capacity by 900 megawatt from renewable energy sources. And in the meantime, we'll have to pay attention to stability. Therefore, we are trying to get some LNG plants open in the future as well. I think that explains.
Good. Thank you, Secretary Pereira. LNG is gas, as mentioned by our colleague from IEA. My last question to my DG Uchung. You've seen the poll says adaptation is most important, resilience. But resilience, unlike mitigation, how do you see investment potential, actual investment potential? Renewable energy, you can put money in and get return. How to get, as a bank, to finance resilience and adaptation, whether this is something ADB can play a bigger role in supporting resilience in many ways, system, energy system, but also transport, every sector under your leadership.
Yeah, thank you. Very important question. So on the resilience adaptation, we have to fundamentally think in a different way, because if you wait for an investment opportunity to pay for something, it's gonna be much more costly. And obviously, building dikes or having, for example, when you do hydropower projects, you do need to protect the watershed so that you have enough water to generate electricity. But there's a tremendous amount of work that we can do in resilience upfront during the planning stages, and that's where I think investing into the knowledge work upfront so that people are better equipped when they actually go into project design and preparation, so that the power plants and whatever auxiliary facilities are developed with the resilience in mind.
Thank you, DG Wuchung, for sharing your views. I'm very happy to hear that all sectors will contribute to a long-term development, starting with planning. So I will conclude with this panel discussion with very short statement from each of our distinguished panelists of one last advice before we move on with other sessions of this busy week. So shall I start with DG Tripathi, please?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. In fact, my statement would be that all international organizations to reinvent ourselves. And particularly when we are talking about infrastructure, we have to think in terms of renewable energy in various sectors, and health particular. And we find, even if we get a COVID vaccine, we need storage in rural areas. So electrification or solarization of the health system, solarization of ventilators, because ventilators also can't work without energy. And that has to be a tremendous, that will be of tremendous importance to look into the energy supply or energy availability for the health sector in various places.
Thank you, DG Tripathi. Can I move now to Mr. Turk from IEA? Advice.
Thank you again for all the terrific partnership with IEA. And as you heard from our executive director, there's no region that's more important, certainly for the IEA and the future of energy, the area that ACEF covers. So congratulations again for a terrific event. Thanks for having us as a partner. And we certainly look forward to working with all the countries who are represented as part of this terrific meeting. So last piece of advice I'd say, and I think it was our colleague from the ADB, Wuchung, who put it incredibly well. Disruption is giving us time to think. And I think it's very important as we look at different economic recovery programs, stimulus programs, the efforts of incredibly important actors like the ADB to take a bit of a step back and think about where we want to go and how do we get to where we want to go, to think creatively and to think rigorously as well. On Thursday of this week, just 2 days from now, we'll put out what we will probably be our most impactful IEA report for this year and maybe even for the several years. It's really focused on sustainable recovery and what are the lessons learned from previous recovery coming out of recessions. What can we learn from each other so that we can build towards those energy systems of the future with resilience, with sustainability, with inclusiveness, taking care of our most vulnerable. So we hope there's some good nuggets in there that everyone can take and learn from. And we certainly look forward to being a partner going forward to implement those kinds of solutions over the coming months and years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turk, and looking forward to a release of a very important report soon. And in fact, every report is from IEA has been actually taken very importantly here. I'm usually the first reader. I always ask my staff, give me the report immediately. So looking forward to that. And now I move to Secretary Pereira for a last piece of advice, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think the future is very clear now. The coordinates of our new direction should be, one, mainly less energy intensive, less mobile lifestyle, and then automation and digitalization of our utilities, power sector utilities, and of course, high admittance of renewable energy and kindling of entrepreneurship with affirmative action for vulnerable around the industry, energy industry. If I say vulnerable, we all are vulnerable, but since the focus here is the energy industry, I mentioned that. Change is inevitable for survival. It's going to be a big life change for all of us. And as American author Zig Ziglar stated, making a big life change is pretty scary, but you know what is scarier? Regret. We do not want to regret for what we do. Therefore, let's take the change as the only way out. Let's renew our lives with renewables. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Pereira. Actually, what you said can become a quote of the day we can publish. Thank you so much. So last word go to my Director General for advice and coming days and the weeks moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. I think all the elements are there, but one of the key things is about disruption and innovation. But where are we going to get the innovation from? If you look at each other and our generation, you're not going to get anything new. So my suggestion is ask somebody at least 20 years younger than you what we should do. I mean, I say this because I have two university age children, Daniel and Sammy. And whenever I talk to them, I get blown, my mind blows up because of some of the stuff that they're thinking, and they're living in a different world. So in order to get the real innovation, we have to get the young people's mind, tap them, and it's about their lives anyway, because what we do now will impact them and their children. So engage the youth and think nothing is impossible.
Thank you, DG Woo Chung, for sharing your thought and good suggestion. I will follow for sure. And before I hand over to someone who's younger than me, I will thank panelists for joining these discussions. Everything has been recorded, actually. We'll share what you have shared with a larger audience, even beyond this live streamed event. It will be can be replayed in the system as well. So as promised, I hand over to David, who is about 15 years younger than me. Back to the moderator of the day.
Well, thank you very much, Young Ping, and thank you to all the panelists for those inspiring words. I think this gives us a very hopeful start to the opening of Virtual ACEF 2020, and it makes me more excited for the week and continually hopeful for the future. Well, this is bringing the time to a close for this opening plenary. I want to thank all the speakers, all the leadership from ADB and all our partner organizations. We couldn't make this event happen without you, but we couldn't make the future happen without all of us working together as well. May I just simply remind everyone to look to the feedback button that's available either above or below your screen. Offer us any comments, and for the event, we are learning as we're doing for even something like this week in this new situation. So please do that. I wish you all a great week yet on ACEF, and with that, I close this session. Thank you, everyone.